Welcome to Official History World, where history comes alive. Explore the events, empires, and people that shaped our world. Subscribe and be part of our journey through time.
The Black Death wasn't just a plague, it was a turning point that reshaped the course of European history. When the deadly disease swept through Europe in the 14th century, it killed nearly half the population, but its impact went far beyond death. It shattered economies, crumbled social structures, and changed the relationship between peasants and nobles forever. From labor revolts to the rise of the middle class, and from religious upheaval to the seeds of modern science, the Black Death transformed Europe in ways no one could have imagined. Today we will talk about how the Black Death reshaped Europe. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. The social collapse and breakdown of daily life. As the plague spread, the social fabric of Europe began to unravel. Families abandoned sick relatives out of fear of infection. Priests died in droves while administering last rites, and entire villages were depopulated. Funeral rites were often skipped, and mass graves became common. With clergy and doctors overwhelmed or dying, traditional structures of care collapsed. This social disintegration eroded the trust people had in religious institutions, governments, and even in their neighbors. People began to live for the moment, convinced that death was imminent. Acts of religious flagellation, superstition, and scapegoating, especially against Jewish communities, surged in desperate attempts to find meaning or protection against the disease. Religious upheaval and decline of church authority. The Catholic Church was a central institution in medieval life, but the plague profoundly undermined its authority. When prayers and rituals failed to stop the spread of disease, many people began to question the Church's spiritual power. Priests and monks died in large numbers, often replaced quickly with poorly trained or morally lax successors, leading to widespread disillusionment. The sight of the clergy unable to protect the faithful caused a loss of faith in the institution itself. This growing skepticism would lay the groundwork for later religious reform movements, including the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. Economic disruption and the rise of the working class. With millions dead, labor became a scarce resource. The survivors, particularly peasants and urban workers, found themselves in a stronger bargaining position. The massive death toll created the labor vacuum that forced landowners to offer higher wages and better working conditions to attract workers. In some regions, wages doubled or even tripled within a few years. This shift weakened the rigid manorial system of feudalism that had dominated medieval Europe for centuries. Peasants began to move more freely, seeking better opportunities, which in turn contributed to the erosion of serfdom. This economic realignment eventually gave rise to a more dynamic and mobile working class. Urbanization and shifting demographics. Before the Black Death, Europe's population had been steadily rising, and cities were growing crowded and unsanitary. The plague reversed this trend. Entire communities were wiped out, and cities became eerily empty. However, in the aftermath, survivors often migrated to urban centers in search of work and opportunity. This influx helped repopulate some cities and contributed to the growth of others. Over time, urban areas became more important economically and politically. The demographic shift also resulted in the abandonment of marginal farmlands and the reforestation of large areas, transforming the landscape itself. Agricultural changes and land redistribution. The sudden drop in population drastically reduced the demand for food, causing a collapse in grain prices. Many large estates that had focused on crop cultivation found it no longer profitable and instead turned to livestock, which required fewer laborers. This transition to pastoral farming further reduced the need for serf labor and opened up new economic models. Land once tightly held by nobles became available to tenant farmers and commoners willing to work it. In the long run, these shifts would break the grip of feudal lords and promote the rise of a more market-oriented rural economy. Political consequences and peasant revolts. Governments, struggling to maintain order and tax revenue, often imposed harsh laws to freeze wages and restrict peasant movement. England's 1351 Statute of Labourers is a prime example of such efforts to return to the pre-plague status quo. These actions sparked widespread resentment and, in some cases, violent uprisings. One of the most notable was the Peasants' Revolt in England in 1381, which, although ultimately suppressed, signaled a growing sense of empowerment among the lower classes. Cultural and psychological shifts. The psychological impact of the Black Death cannot be overstated. Art, literature, and philosophy were deeply affected by the ever-present specter of death. The famous Dance Macabre or Dance of Death motif emerged, depicting skeletons leading people of all classes to their graves. Writers like Boccaccio the Decameron and later Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales reflected on human behavior during the plague with irony, criticism, and wit. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.